Welcome to Family Business Breakthroughs, where we bring you time-saving, money-making strategies to improve your business even more. With over 3 decades of experience serving multi-generational family businesses, we've got time-tested solutions that get you the results you're looking for. Listen in and get ready for your next breakthrough. I'm your host, Jim Berner. We are continuing our discussion about the 3 pillars of Meridian Method: vision, people, and money. In the previous episodes, we talked about vision and people already. And so we started into money. And last episode, we specifically spoke about cash. We love
Hey.
cash. And today, we're going to be talking about profitability. I have with me Betsi Bixby, founder and owner of Meridian Associates. Meridian is the leader in supporting family business owners, their next gens, their teams to achieve their goals of family legacy, growing their communities, and thriving their companies forward. And Meridian has done this through one-on-one coaching, on-site strategic planning, live events, online education, financial analysis, and the list keeps going. Betsi, you have over 30 years of experience supporting family businesses, and your insights come from real-world practice. This isn't academia. Betsi, we talked about last time that you have a background in banking. You're a former banker. And again, I just want to encourage everybody to go back to the last episode, hear your story, and hop on to askmeridian.com to read more about it. It's super exciting, as every owner's story obviously is. It's really,
Well,
that's one
Jim,
of the
don't
things I
forget
love
you're
about
an
family
owner
business.
now too, right?
My story is a little different than yours, but I love hearing the beginning. So, Betsy, we're talking about profitability, and so let's start with differentiating between profitability and cash. We spoke about it briefly last time, but there is a difference between it. So, walk us through, the differences between profitability and cash.
Absolutely, Jim. Well, the easy thing to think about profitability is you produce a profit and loss statement at the end of the month, and profitability is just the number that's on that bottom line.
Hmm.
And cash is what's actually in your bank. And those can be two very different things. And as you know, the whole reason that Meridian started is because I was working with people who had really strong profits at the bottom line,
Hmm.
and they had no money. They had no actual cash. And so that makes for a really, difficult situation. But we talked about that last time. So what we want to talk about now is just looking at that bottom line and saying, as an owner, is it where I want it to be, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a great setup. So, based off of your history, obviously there were some challenges from that standpoint of profitability. So, do you still see some family businesses struggling with profitability, or is this just a battle to make more of it?
Well, Jim is actually both, which is really interesting because sometimes we'll have family businesses that have been in business for, multiple decades, and they'll go through some swings, some cycles where all of a
Mhm.
sudden, oh, shoot, the profits aren't as good. So there's that. And then there's also the companies that are like, oh, yeah, we're doing great, but we'd like to do a
Mhm.
little greater, right? It's I rarely meet a business owner that even with a tremendous year will say,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, that was enough."
Yeah.
We're done. So I think one of the fun parts of being in business, as well as people that give to their community and all the really cool stuff that happens when you have
Mhm.
great profitability. I think every business owner just wants to keep hitting it out of the park and doing better, better, and better, no matter where they are.
Yeah. Well, you kind of mentioned there, they've done some pretty cool things when you see great profitability. Anything that stands out to you that somebody kind of did when they saw the bottom line? They're like, we need to go and do that.
Oh, well, actually, I think the one that was most inspirational for me was one of our Empower clients who, at the beginning of the year, saw a need in their community.
Mm.
And Jim, you know about this one. It was they needed tennis courts, and this person had played
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of tennis. He and his wife both, and so they knew what it would take to actually, rehab the tennis courts. And so they set that as their goal to say, look, we just want to make enough money to be able to give to our community exactly that,
Mm,
after salaries, after their employees, after all their costs. So it was a huge motivation because people in their family company realized, hey, we're working for a cause this year. So it was pretty neat. That's the one that really sticks out. But
mm.
gosh, there's just so many good stories of family businesses doing amazing things in their communities. It's commonplace, but that one I thought was really inspirational.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I know exactly who you're talking about there, and
Yeah,
they do some pretty phenomenal
yeah,
things
awesome
overall,
family.
so it's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
So, yeah, I was like a squirrel there for a second, I just, I just saw that
that's
and I was like,
okay.
"Oh, man,
Yeah,
let's hear
it
it."
was fun. It was fun.
So for family businesses who may be struggling in that bottom line, that,
Yeah.
profitability, where should they start with kind of exploring the root cause of, those challenges?
Yeah. So, Jim, you are well aware we have our Meridian method of financial analysis, the Meridian 10. And as part of that, we strongly suggest that people, pay attention to trends right at the top line and figuring out what's going on.
Mhm.
Um, and depending upon what's going on with prices, it's kind of interesting because in family businesses, if prices are going up, you can look like you're gaining ground when you're really not, right?
Mhm.
So the big question, I think, that anytime you're looking at trends analysis, and we like to look at month to month to month, but we also in cyclical businesses or seasonal businesses, we want to look at the prior year during that same peak season or whatever. And you got to ask the question why. Even when the trend is really positive, you have to ask yourself the question why. And so if there's a decline, the questions need to be, is this because of a general trend that's going on around us? In other words, we had the pandemic, right? That was,
Mhm.
perfect example. Stuff's going to go
Right.
down. But you look at that and you say, okay, is this, kind of an outside thing going on? And if so, where's it going? Is it temporary? Is it going to continue? Is it that we are trying to sell something that's becoming obsolete? I always tease about, the family company making steam engines, right? Probably not doing very well right now. Actually, they could be because they're like a specialty item now, right? In a few antique railroads. But
Mhm.
so you have to look and just ask yourself the question, what's going on, why, and then the big thing then is based on the answer to that question, you've got to be able to pivot. And with multi generational companies, a lot of times they're pretty entrenched into, this is what we've been selling for the last 75 years. And even as it starts going downhill, they may not want to make a change. And it's something that they should make a change. Same thing in services. Is a trend because all of a sudden I've got competitors where I didn't have competitors before, or I have a
Mhm.
very formidable competitor that's come
Sure.
in and underpriced, or so everybody's got different situations. So we really encourage companies that where the profitability is not going in the direction that they want it to go, that simple question of why, and being like super honest with your analysis and not, just hopeful.
Yeah. So you brought up a good point there. You talked about multi-generational family businesses. They've been doing this for so long. And
Hmm.
Betsy, I'm sure you've come across this before, which is, you get onto your first coaching session or strategic plan with a business owner, and they say, we've been in business for over 50 years or 100 years. We're doing just fine on the bottom line. What would you say to the business owner? What do you say to them when they kind of, express that we've been in business for this long? We're doing all right.
Yeah, it's again, I think any business owner is not content with status quo. I think it's a sign of you're either growing or you're going, right? We all
Mm,
hear that
mm,
cliche, but I truly believe that. And so if you're just kind of sitting around and you're kind of complacent, you're just chugging along, you think, it's okay. Um, you're probably not too far away from somebody coming and eating your lunch. you know,
It's a good point.
yeah, yeah. So I don't find very many business owners that way. What I do find is that sometimes when our sales team will talk to businesses, that's kind of like what they put forward. Oh, we're fine. We're fine. We've been doing this for 100 years type of thing. But, we're big believers in outside perspective. And, what if you could double your profits, even though they're really good right now? And then, let the owner dream a little bit about, okay, if that was the case, would you be able to bless your community more? Would you be able to take care of your kids more? Would you be
Hmm.
able to pay your employees more? What kind of an impact would it have if you were to actually double your profits? And so that that usually cuts through that kind of thinking.
Well, that's really good because you kind of bring up this vision and having them think before. So, uh, what are some of the most unexpected or creative ways you've seen business owners boost profitability, kind of based upon this dream, and then they become a reality?
So, oh my gosh, just got so many stories. I got the funny ones and then the really amazing ones. So, we were working with a company, and the young man had taken it over from his dad, and there was just one sector of the business that he just didn't like, and he said, "Oh, we're never going to do that. My dad did that, but we're never going to do that." Well, then, you know. A few years later, guess what? He kind of gets thrust into the position of doing that sector, and now they're expanding that sector like mad,
Oh,
and
wow.
he's making money and having fun, and they figured it out. So that was a fun one. But I have to tell you a funny one, Jim. So as the energy thing kind of changed around, we had an energy company in Pennsylvania that was and still a client of ours. And I love it when companies look around and they say, what are we paying for? Right. And what's happening in the marketplace and all that. Right.
Hmm.
So this guy looked around, and every time they were doing some drilling in Pennsylvania with the shale that was going on up there,
Yeah.
is they there was nowhere for the workers to stay. And then also he saw that there were these like little mobile units they were putting out on job sites and stuff, and with every mobile unit there was a porta potty. And this guy said to me, and I thought he was kidding at first, and he said, "Yep, we're going to go in the porta potty business." And I can't tell you some of the other colorful things he started to say about it. But they ended up doing a porta potty business.
No way.
And yeah, way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they realize that not only are these, like these construction porta potties, but they have these really jazzy, fancy porta potties that they do at events and weddings and stuff. Yeah, I was cracking up when we were in this coaching call. I'm like, you have got to be kidding, right? But it just goes to show, when you look around in your marketplace and you say what's happening,
Mm.
and you have the attitude of, we're a family business, and we're here to make money, and we're here to capitalize on opportunities and trends that are happening, and you have that kind of a mindset. It's really fun sometimes what these family companies come up with. It's pretty cool.
Would you say that just kind of the majority of the times for the unexpected or creative ideas are just like driving around in your communities? Or do you think that there's other ways? Like, do you think people are just paying attention to trends, or what's kind of the best way for them to be doing this? Or that way you see them getting these ideas?
Yeah, well, I think, one of the things that family businesses are really good at is being connected in the industry or in their communities, right?
Hmm.
So they
Hmm.
belong to Rotary clubs or Lions clubs or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
And that is a really fun and interesting way to know what's growing and what's happening in the community.
Yeah.
I had a company that was they'd get the contractor blue sheets. I don't know if you're familiar with those, Jim, but
Hmm.
it's when you go for the through the permitting process, anytime that you have to have a local permit, they, do this list of, here's who's applied for permits for what. And so the company belonged to a distribution list for that. They could see everything that was going on, you
Oh,
know.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. So the blue sheets were extremely helpful. And in this case, the company was involved with the contractors doing some supply items for the actual dirt contractors. And so that made tons of sense for them, right? But they also knew everything that was going on. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's like almost like insider trading right there. You get to see what's going on and stay ahead of the
Exactly.
curve.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yep.
So that's really good, man. You think that a lot of these individuals, even sometimes what I've seen on the valuation side, is they just ask themselves, "What is the need in my community?" Like you just mentioned,
Yeah.
someone's like, "Oh yeah, I wish we had this." So that's really it's really good place to start if you're looking for a new opportunity.
The other
Um,
place, Jim, I just want to break
yeah.
in because the other place that I love for people to actually look is in their payables list. Who are you
Mm,
paying for what? Right?
mm,
Because if you're needing it and you're paying somebody else to do it, there's usually some opportunity there for you to become that provider. So that's also been a really interesting source of our companies that we work with, looking and saying, okay, who are we paying for what, and is this something we could do really well? Is the company that they're working with for whatever it is that they're buying or supplying or services, um, is that something that that owner's getting older, it's something where we might be able to do an acquisition. So I've seen a lot of diversification in a really integrated way when
mhm,
companies just go through their payables list and say, okay, who are we paying for what? So, for instance, we had a retailer with a bunch of different, restaurant store locations. They were paying, and it was kind of like it was a pain in the neck for them. They were paying for like landscape maintenance services and cleaning services for their
yeah,
lots, and it was never at the like the level that they really wanted. And it was like, we could probably do this. And they started doing just a small bit of it. That whole now it's a division with like, I can't remember how many people in it. Maybe they started with just a couple and now it's grown to like
mhm,
8 or 10. But that whole thing is expanding. And
mhm,
because they're doing it so well and actually can do it at a really good price point, they're now selling to other local businesses and doing it way
wow,
better, So it just became an opportunity. It was a way to get rid of something that they weren't satisfied with, do it better. And then we set a goal to say, okay, at what point do we want to be selling to people outside of ourselves? And then we reached to the next goal, which was, okay, what percent of our revenues do we want to set a target for that'll be coming from external sources? Because that's real
wow.
real profit coming in. The other was just savings and cost reduction and, looking better.
And I love that from the perspective of diversifying too.
Yep.
Not putting all your eggs in one basket. And what a great place to start is with yourself, not just looking around like, oh, what can we do? It's like, here are actual things that are being
Yep.
done, actual services that
Uh-huh.
we're paying for. I love that. What a great idea. And I hope that people are jotting this down right now because that is a great place to start. Pull all those up in your accounts payable and start searching through it. Have a real conversation. Like you said, what is it that we could actually do on our own here that would make sense?
Yep.
So I love it. So, Betsy, I hear owners say that, I can't compete against, the big company down the road. They can just offer everything at a better price. So what do you say to those business owners and how can they create a competitive advantage against the big company or the competitor that's down the road competing against them?
Oh my gosh, that we deal with that all the time. We actually teach that in our total team coaching, and we've done specific courses that are sitting on our Meridian members website on that. But the main thing is like you're not going to win on price. So don't do that. Don't get into the price competition. Where families, businesses, I think, have extreme advantages is in service.
Mm.
And so you just have to then say, okay, what makes our service different than everybody else who says their service is wonderful? How can we be better than that competition, those big guys? And a lot of times it's personalized. It has a lot to do with marketing, making sure people know you're a family business. And then, a service that just goes above and beyond into that wow factor, right? Where you're like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I just had one of those experiences a couple of weekends ago where it was like, oh my gosh, how did they know I even like this? And, they arranged for this to happen. And, it was just
Oh, wow.
incredible. It was like one of those things, and I went, oh my goodness, like this is taking service to a whole nother level.
Mm.
Completely unexpected, had no clue it was going to happen. That's what family businesses can do. They can operate at that level. And, I used to, and I still hear this, where there'll be a big competitor come into an area, and I'll hear a family business say, this is awesome because I'm going to pick up more customers
Mm.
in
Yeah.
the next 2 months, because they're going to treat them like the cattle call, or, they're not going to get the service or whatever it is. And so they'll actually pick up customers when a big competitor comes in.
Wow.
So it's really getting your mindset. And it is getting your systems in place. It's having honest conversations about where are your strengths, right? A lot of times what I find with family business has been around for 100 years is they actually take their strengths for granted. Like they've
Mm.
lived with them so long they don't even know that they're different. So one of the
Mm.
things that we do is help them to identify what are those strengths, and then how can you leverage those strengths.
That is extremely powerful. And really, I didn't even think about from the perspective of having those blinders on that, gosh, for so long you've been doing certain things that for you it's second nature.
That's
And
right.
and for your competitor, it's probably an inconvenience.
Yeah.
And it's time for them that they are not saving, when in reality for the family business they're like, look, this is just how we treat people. I know people win my business with service 110%.
Yep.
That's for sure, especially
Yep.
mechanics. They gosh, the transparency, and also a good barber, that's for sure.
So here's a fun one for you. So we were working with a company that makes residential deliveries, and what they realized was that they could really inexpensively. This is in snow territory where you used to come from, Jim. They could put a snow plow on the truck, and they could
Oh,
actually
wow.
just plow the person's driveway at the same time that they were
I
delivering it.
love
And
that.
they didn't have to charge them anything, right? Because they're already there. It's like not a big deal. It's just putting the plow
Hmm.
down and going, right? So it's so, once you start really thinking about this, family businesses, if you just think like your customer and you say, how can we bless the customer?
Hmm.
That to me is a big question. How can we bless that customer in an unexpected way that won't be costly to us, but will be very meaningful to them? And as you could imagine, a snowplow and having your
Yeah.
driveway plowed was a big deal, right?
Yeah, and despite me being here in Texas, and I love being in Texas because we don't have tons of snow, where I grew up, which is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to know that maybe if my parents were getting that service,
Oh yeah,
that they didn't have to do it because they're both retired now. And
right.
so, somebody else is also kind of helping and watching out. Like those are the things, the little things
They're
that,
meaningful.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
super meaningful. Wow, I
yeah,
love that. And man, what a great way to just really, I don't know, just take care of your community as we kind of always
yeah,
talk about. So
yep,
it's really,
absolutely.
really cool. Um, all right, so I want to talk about a couple key takeaways here, and we went over them kind of fast. So you mentioned the Meridian 10.
Yes.
This is our financial trend analysis here that we have. That's on Meridian members. So people can sign up on Meridian members to be there. That is fully on there, video and all that we have for people to take a look at. Just overall using trend analysis and asking why,
Hmm.
certain trends are acting in a specific manner, because it's different for everything from expenses to seasonality. That you really got
Yep.
to understand the basis for it. I loved your quote of growing or going. So true, because if you're not growing, you're not trying to innovate, then you might as well just stop, and someone's going to be taking over. That's for sure.
Hmm.
You also talked about, if you are, who are you paying and for what? What a great
Yeah.
opportunity to find new opportunities, diversification, maybe even a potential acquisition of somebody that they're already given up. So they already have the customer base. That's great. And then for
And
family
Jim, I'm
business,
going to break
yeah,
in and say, when
yeah.
you do want to get an acquisition, call Jim, because that's yeah, extraordinary valuation department. He's just one member of that, but I mean, I think that's another way that we really bless our customers,
Yes.
clients.
Yeah, you bet. You bet 110%. We have we'll do a whole other episode on that. We'll talk about that. It's a lot of fun. We hear great stories all the time. And then finally, family businesses focusing on service as, as a true strength. And
Mhm.
while some are probably already saying, yeah, we already do that, I really want people to start thinking beyond the blinders and, knowing that this really is and what else can be done, and just taking again another step and getting your people involved, I think, to find out what that looks like too. So, Betsy, I want to thank you for your time today. Again, sharing super valuable insight. As always, I want to encourage people to go back, pause, and start jotting down notes, because these are actions that you can be taking right now and put into play. And also, everyone listening, message me your questions, your comments. I want to hear from you. My contact information is down in the show notes. And as a reminder, Meridian is here to serve you and your family. If you're looking for succession planning, leadership, next gen coaching, you want to attend one of our awesome events, check out the show description for the links to our website and those events. We'll have the dates on our website as well for this year, 2025, are coming up. And feel free to reach out with any questions or comments. Hit the subscribe button down below and receive all the new content. So thank you for listening in. Betsy, thank you very much for your time. And we'll see you next time on Family Business Breakthroughs.